Afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
Just so we can get an idea of the time frame that this interview took place with Mr. Casaus. Let me bring it down, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's probably better. Just so we can get an idea of the time frame when this interview took place with Mr. Casaus. This interview with him, with Mr. Casaus, took place in the early morning hours of December 28th, correct?
Correct.
And when the video started, what was shown to the jury, Mr. Casaus had actually been in that interview room for several hours, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how long, but for a while.
Long enough for him to actually fall asleep in there, correct?
I don't know if he was sleeping.
Okay, so you don't recall walking in there and he was actually sound asleep?
Yeah, he might have been. I just don't remember right now.
And that wasn't important for you to take note of?
No, he woke up fine.
Okay. And this interview took place approximately 10 to 12 hours after this initial incident with Omaree, correct?
Maybe 10 hours after we were called.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So about 4 in the morning?
That's possible, yeah. Maybe 3, 4 in the morning.
All righty. And when you were just speaking with the state about your qualifications, you indicated that you are a detective, right?
I'm not currently a detective. At the time I was.
You were a detective then?
Yes.
And you were a detective specifically in the crimes against children?
Correct.
And you had to go through special training to be in that unit, right?
Yes.
And take a special test?
Yes.
And you did all those things and you became a detective, right?
Correct.
And you brought all that training and all that experience and the test, you took that and you brought that to the interview with Mr. Casaus?
Yes.
You also brought all that training and experience to your interview with Cynthia Varela Casaus?
Yes.
And Miss Varela Casaus confessed to kicking Omaree, right?
Yes.
During your interview with her?
Correct.
But Mr. Casaus did not confess to injuring Omaree, correct?
Correct.
And as a result of your interview with Mr. Casaus, that lasted several hours, right?
Yes.
Longer than what we saw on TV here.
The interview itself?
Correct?
No, it would have been what you saw on
Okay.
TV.
But there were portions of time that there was no one in there talking to him and Mr. Casaus is just sitting there, right?
Correct.
Okay. And despite this amount of time that you and Detective English spoke with him, and despite the sort of changes in story you discussed with the jury a few minutes ago, and despite what you say you described as his hands being puffy, you actually escorted Mr. Casaus out the door, right?
Yes.
You said, "You're free to leave, Mr. Casaus," right?
Yes.
But not Cynthia Varela Casaus, right?
That's right.
She was actually, you had enough and you arrested her that night.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked and already entered as State's Exhibit 75. Now, the purpose of putting Mr. Casaus in that white suit is to, that bunny suit, is to take his clothing for evidence, correct?
Yes.
Because clothing can hold DNA.
Yes.
It can have blood,
Right.
saliva,
Yes.
skin,
Yes.
and all those things, blood, saliva, and skin, can be tested for DNA, right?
Yes.
And that was the purpose of putting Mr. Casaus in that white suit, right?
So we could collect his clothing.
Okay. And you did collect his clothing.
Yes.
And there was nothing found on his clothing that indicated he had anything to do with Omaree's death, correct?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that part of the case.
Okay. So let's talk about Mr. Casaus's hands, right? You described them as being sort of swollen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Now, likewise, just like clothing, you can test clothing or pencils or cigarettes or remote controls for DNA, right? You can also test hands for DNA, can't you?
Yes.
It's actually a pretty simple test. It's take a swab and run it over the fingers or over the knuckles, right?
Yes.
Takes about 10 seconds.
Probably.
And you had Mr. Casaus, as we've established, here at this police station for hours, at which time, much of the time, he was just sitting there. And you never took this Q-tip and ran it over his hands, did you?
I don't take DNA samples.
Did Mr. Casaus have DNA samples taken of his hands at your direction?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Even though it would have been taken 10 seconds and he was already there, right?
Well, there would have been more paperwork involved in, a search warrant and all that.
Okay. Just like the search warrant you got to take his clothing, right?
Right.
Okay. And so you could have gotten the search warrant to take this quick swab of his hand, but you didn't do that.
I didn't do the search warrant.
And it wasn't done. There was no search of Mr. Casaus's hands, correct?
As far as I know, there wasn't.
Was not?
There was not.
Thank you. Now, looking at his hands there is no abrasion on his knuckles or his fingers, right?
Right.
There are no bruisings or anything like that on his knuckles or fingers, right?
No, just the swelling and redness that I had mentioned.
There's no lacerations on his fingers or his knuckles, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, when you and Detective English specifically asked him about his hands, he told you why they were swollen, didn't he?
Eventually, yes.
He told you they were swollen because he was using heroin, right?
Right.
And heroin, you can inject it into your veins,
Yes.
right? And it can cause circulation problems, right?
Sure.
Objection, Your Honor, it's outside the scope. No foundation for this witness.
I don't believe it's outside the scope they brought his hands into issue, Your Honor.
I guess my question is, come.
And Officer, Steve Casaus told you his hands were swollen from using heroin, correct?
Yes.
And as you sit here today, you do not know whether there was any DNA evidence from the clothing collected, or I guess his knuckles were never swabbed or his hands were never swabbed, or from the clothing that was collected from Mr. Casaus that linked him to the death of Omaree, correct?
As far as I know,
Yes.
yeah, because like I said, I'm not familiar with that end of the case.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Nothing further. Thank you.
Page 7, Your Honor.
right. Just a few questions. During cross-examination, you were asked what time the interview with the defendant began. Do you know the exact time that that interview began?
I don't.
Would looking at the supplemental report help refresh your memory?
Yes, it would.
Here's the supplemental report.
So what's the question, Mr.
The question was, what time did the interview with Mr. Casaus begin?
At the actual interview or what's the question?
When the interview actually, or approximately began, the actual interview though, not when he was brought to the room, when the actual interview would have begun.
Right. And according to,
We don't want you to read it, just to refresh your recollection.
yes, Your Honor. It looks like it was a little bit after midnight that we actually went into the room and started interviewing.
And would looking at or do you know at what time he was placed in the bunny suit and his clothes were collected?
I don't recall the time.
Would looking at the report help refresh your memory about what time that was?
Yes, it would.
Go ahead and you can look at the report, and then once you're done, let us know.
At about 3:10 in the morning, we went back into the room to speak with Stephen again. And then my report doesn't indicate how long we spoke with him, at least where I just looked. I think it was maybe, recalling from the video, I think it was about 20 minutes. And then the interview ended.
Okay. May I have a moment, Chairman? And you were, during cross-examination, you were asked a lot of different questions about whether or not you did this or whether or not you did that. Was that your role in this case?
Your Honor, objection to the form of the question. It's too vague.
Yeah, the defense was asking me if I conducted a hand swab to check for DNA. In this case, that wasn't my function. It was other detectives were working on that end of the case. They were working on search warrants and all that, so I had nothing to do with that.
No further questions, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Counsel, come forward just a
All right, folks. Long weekend. And you have a judge not paying attention to your needs, having you sit there for 3 hours, and so I apologize for that. So what we're going to do is end with this. We still have some additional evidence to be taken next week. We have some issues to address on Tuesday morning, when the holidays will be closed. closed. So Tuesday morning, we will spend some time addressing some of the issues to get those out of the way and out of your hearing. And then we're going to start back with some evidence on Tuesday afternoon. So I'd like to have you downstairs at 1:15 on Tuesday. And then we're going to try to get you up here pretty shortly after that. I say that, hopefully shortly after that, to start taking some evidence at 1:30 and try to get the case closed to you. Okay? So you know what's coming. The admonition. Make sure, again, it's been widely publicized, so just try to keep yourself insulated this far into it, and certainly there'll be some news coverage that'll be displayed about it. Keep yourself insulated from it. Don't discuss it with your family, your friend, your folks want to talk about your week. Tell them you can't do that yet. Give us another week of your time, and then you can talk about all you want. But for the weekend, keep yourself insulated from it, and we'll try to get you back in here and get it finished next week. So make sure that you have your pads that you have been taking notes on left here. Ms. Pat will get those locked up for you and have other fresh pads for you as well on Tuesday, and then we'll try to proceed and get this done next week. Okay? All right. Thank you for your patience. And Ms. Rice, please be seated. Okay. So before we leave this afternoon, please make sure that we have all of the evidence. Please help Ms. Shannon do so. I don't think Ms. Shannon's going to do it. So we're going to have a different court report, so it's going to be ever more important for us to be able to have all of the evidence that's been admitted in this case before you can leave here this evening. I think we should have most of it, but let's make sure that we do. It would probably be a good idea over the weekend. Well, I don't know that you need to take everything. We still have this next week, but if you want to leave some things, that's fine. But certainly nothing of value. Take that with you, and certainly probably clear the tables. And if you want to leave some things in, you're certainly welcome to do so. I think everything else will be here when we start on Tuesday. So I'd like to have you here. Let me make sure. What's Tuesday morning? So I just really have one thing at 8:15. So we can really get things started about 8:30, if that works with everybody. All right. So let's plan on 8:30. We'll address motions and those kinds of things. And then the jury's, as you heard, is not instructed to come back till the afternoon, so we'll have a good part of the morning to address whatever issues we need to as well. Okay? All right, is there anything we need to put on the record before we recess for this evening? No. Well, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you on Tuesday.